What happens when royal privilege collides with reality TV royalty and an entitled prince finally gets what's coming to him? In just 38 seconds, one shocking comment would turn a casual late-night interview into the most explosive meltdown ever caught on camera. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping moment, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we're pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side. We're exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think about this outrageous behavior. Now let's get into what really went down that night. Andy Cohen's late-night show has seen its fair share of celebrity drama. From Real Housewives throwing drinks to pop stars storming off mid-interview, Andy has handled them all with his signature charm and quick wit. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold when Prince Harry walked onto his set. The stage was set like any other evening. The lights were bright, the audience was buzzing with excitement, and Andy sat in his familiar host chair with that welcoming smile he's known for. Prince Harry strutted in, waving to the crowd with that rehearsed royal wave, and took his seat across from Andy. At first, everything seemed cordial enough. Andy opened with his usual warmth, greeting his guest and thanking him for coming on the show. The audience applauded politely as Harry settled into his chair, adjusting his jacket with an air of superiority that didn't go unnoticed by those watching closely. "Thanks for having me," Harry said, though his tone carried less gratitude and more expectation, as if Andy should feel honored by his presence. Andy, ever the professional, jumped right into the conversation. "So, let's talk about your new venture. You've been making quite a few moves lately. Tell us what you've been up to." Harry leaned back in his chair, spreading his arms across the back of the seat in a posture that screamed entitlement. "Well, Andy, I've been doing a lot of important work. Life-changing work, actually. The kind of work that matters, you know? Not just sitting around asking people questions for entertainment." The audience went quiet. You could feel the temperature in the room drop several degrees. Andy's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, but he maintained his composure like the seasoned host he is. "Well, I'd like to think we do a bit more than just ask questions here," Andy replied with a light laugh, trying to keep things friendly. "We connect with people, share stories, have meaningful conversations." Harry scoffed. Actually scoffed. On live television. Meaningful? Andy, come on. Let's be real here. You have people on your show who throw tantrums about seating arrangements and wine selections. That's hardly what I'd call meaningful. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few gasps could be heard. Andy's expression changed. The friendly host's demeanor started to crack, revealing someone who wasn't going to tolerate disrespect on his own show. "You know what, Harry? Those people you're talking about? They show up. They're honest. They're real with the audience. They don't act like the world owes them something just because of who their family is," Andy said, his voice still controlled, but with an edge that wasn't there before. Harry sat forward now, his face reddening. "Excuse me? Are you really going to lecture me about entitlement? You, who makes a living off of other people's drama and dysfunction." "I make a living giving people a platform," Andy shot back, his patience clearly wearing thin. "Something you seem to think you deserve without earning it." The tension was suffocating. The audience didn't know whether to watch or look away. This wasn't playful banter. This wasn't a staged bit for ratings. This was real animosity bubbling to the surface. Harry's voice rose. "I've earned everything I have. Do you know what it's like growing up under that kind of scrutiny? That kind of pressure? No, you don't. You have no idea what I've been through." Andy remained calm, which only seemed to infuriate Harry more. "You're right. I don't know what that's like. But I do know what it's like to work for everything I have. To build something from the ground up without a royal title or a trust fund to fall back on." "Oh, here we go," Harry said, rolling his eyes dramatically. The whole self-made man speech. How original, Andy. Really groundbreaking stuff. The sarcasm was dripping from every word. The disrespect was palpable. Andy had given Harry multiple chances to reset, to bring the conversation back to a civil place, but Harry kept pushing. "You know what your problem is?" Harry continued, not giving Andy a chance to respond. "You think you're better than everyone. You sit here in your little chair, asking your little questions, judging everyone who sits across from you. But you're nothing special, Andy. You're just another talk show host." The audience collectively held their breath. You don't come onto someone's show and insult them like that. You just don't. It's basic respect, basic human decency. But Harry didn't seem to care about any of that. Andy's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. When he spoke, his voice was low and measured. "I think we need to take a break." "No," Harry said defiantly. "No breaks. Let's keep going. Let's really get into it. You want real? Let's be real." "Harry, I'm asking you nicely to calm down," Andy said, and you could hear the warning in his voice. He was giving Harry one last opportunity to pull it together, but Harry was too far gone. "Calm down? You want me to calm down? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone always wants to control me, tell me what to do, how to act. I'm done with that. I'm done with people like you thinking they can manage me." Andy stood up. The movement was sudden enough that it caught everyone off guard. "This interview is over." "Oh, is it?" Harry said, standing up as well. "You're going to kick me off your show? Do you know who I am?" And there it was. The moment that would define the entire confrontation. Those 5 words. "Do you know who I am?" The ultimate entitled celebrity move. The phrase that exposes someone for exactly who they are. Andy didn't miss a beat. "Yes, I know exactly who you are. And that's why I'm asking you to leave. This is my show, my stage, and I don't tolerate disrespect. I don't care what your last name is or what family you come from. You don't get to come here and treat me or my show like garbage." Harry's face turned a deep shade of red. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. "You're making a huge mistake, Andy. A huge mistake. Do you understand the consequences of throwing me off your show?" The audience was completely silent now. Every eye was glued to the scene unfolding before them. This was beyond awkward. This was a full-blown disaster. "The only mistake here is yours," Andy replied calmly. "Security, can you please escort our guest out?" That word, guest. The way Andy said it, with such pointed emphasis, made it clear that Harry had worn out his welcome. He wasn't a valued guest anymore. He was just someone who needed to leave. 2 security guards appeared from the wings. Harry looked at them, then back at Andy, his expression a mixture of shock and rage. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious," Andy said. "It's time for you to go." Harry pointed a finger at Andy, his voice shaking with anger. "This isn't over. You're going to regret this." Andy crossed his arms, completely unfazed. "I regret giving you this platform in the first place. Now please leave before this gets any worse." The security guards moved closer to Harry. For a moment, it looked like he might actually resist, might cause an even bigger scene. But something in Andy's expression, that unwavering confidence, seemed to deflate him slightly. "Fine," Harry spat. "I don't need this show anyway. I don't need you." He turned sharply, nearly knocking into one of the security guards, and started walking toward the exit. But he couldn't resist one final parting shot. He stopped, turned back around, and looked directly at Andy. "You know what, Andy? You're just bitter. Bitter and sad. That's why you're still here doing this after all these years. Because this is all you have. This little show, these little interviews. It's pathetic." The insult hung in the air like poison, but Andy didn't flinch. He didn't react. He just stared at Harry with an expression that said everything without words. It said, "I'm above this. I'm better than engaging with your tantrum." That non-reaction seemed to frustrate Harry even more. He wanted to get under Andy's skin, wanted to hurt him the way he felt hurt, but Andy refused to give him that satisfaction. "Goodbye, Harry," Andy said simply. The security guards gently guided Harry toward the exit. He shrugged them off, making a show of walking out on his own terms. But everyone could see the truth. He wasn't leaving with dignity. He was being thrown out, escorted off the premises like someone who'd caused a disturbance at a restaurant or a bar. The audience didn't know how to react. Should they applaud? Should they stay quiet? A few scattered claps started, then grew louder as people realized they were witnessing something historic. They were watching a host stand up for himself, refuse to be bullied or disrespected, even by someone with a royal title. Andy turned back to the audience, and you could see him take a deep breath, composing himself. His hands were shaking slightly, the adrenaline clearly pumping through his system, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Well, he said with a slight smile. That was something, wasn't it?" The audience erupted in applause and cheers. They were supporting him, showing him that he'd done the right thing, that he'd handled an impossible situation with grace and strength. Andy sat back down in his chair, straightening his jacket. "You know, in all my years doing this show, I've interviewed hundreds of people. Some wonderful, some difficult, some unforgettable, for all the right reasons. And then there are moments like this." He paused, choosing his words carefully. I have tremendous respect for everyone who comes on this show. I really do. But respect is a two-way street. You can't demand it while refusing to give it. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. The audience applauded again, louder this time. They understood what Andy was saying. They appreciated his honesty, his willingness to call out behavior that was clearly unacceptable. I started this show because I love connecting with the people, Andy continued. I love hearing their stories, understanding their perspectives, even when we disagree. But there's a difference between disagreement and disrespect. There's a difference between being honest and being cruel. Someone in the audience shouted, "We love you, Andy." Others joined in with similar sentiments. The support was overwhelming and genuine. Andy smiled, and for the first time since the confrontation began, it looked like a real smile. I love you guys too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for understanding why I had to do what I just did. He glanced toward the exit where Harry had departed just moments ago. Look, I hope he finds what he's looking for. I really do. But he's not going to find it by treating people the way he treated me tonight. You can't go through life expecting everyone to bow down to you because of your title or your family name. That's not how the real world works. The audience cheered again. They were completely on Andy's side, and rightfully so. He'd handled himself perfectly. He'd given Harry multiple chances to course correct, to salvage the interview, but Harry had refused every single opportunity. Should we talk about what just happened? Andy asked the audience. Because I think we need to process this together. People shouted their agreement. They wanted to hear Andy's thoughts, wanted him to unpack the confrontation while it was still fresh. Here's the thing, Andy said, leaning forward in his chair. When someone comes on this show, any show really, there's an unspoken agreement. You're going to be respectful. You're going to engage in good faith. Even if things get heated, even if there's disagreement, you maintain a basic level of human decency. He shook his head slowly. What you just witnessed was someone who has no concept of that agreement, someone who thinks the rules don't apply to them. And maybe in their world, in their bubble, the rules don't apply. But not here. Not on this. The conviction in his voice was powerful. This wasn't just about one bad interview. This was about standing up for yourself, about drawing boundaries, about refusing to accept mistreatment regardless of who's dishing it out. I've been called a lot of things over the years, Andy said with a wry smile. Some true, some not so true. But one thing I've never been called is a pushover. And I'm not about to start now. More applause, more cheers. The energy in the room had completely shifted. What started as an uncomfortable, tense situation had transformed into a moment of empowerment. The audience was rallying around their host, showing him that he'd made the right call. You know what's interesting? Andy mused. Before he came out here, I was actually looking forward to this interview. I thought we'd have a great conversation. I thought he'd be open and honest and real. Instead, I got attitude and insults from the moment he sat down. Someone in the audience yelled, "His loss." And others laughed and agreed. You're absolutely right, Andy said, pointing toward the voice. It is his loss. Because this platform, this show, it's valuable. Not because of me necessarily, but because of you. Because millions of people tune in, pay attention, engage with what happens here. And he just threw that away because he couldn't check his ego at the door. Andy stood up again, this time with purpose. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I know that wasn't the show you expected, and honestly, it wasn't the show I expected either. But sometimes real moments are better than scripted ones. Sometimes standing up for what's right is more important than playing it safe. The audience gave him a standing ovation. Every single person in that studio was on their feet, applauding, cheering, showing their support. It was a beautiful moment, a powerful contrast to the ugliness that had preceded it. Andy's eyes glistened slightly, clearly moved by the response. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me right now. He took another deep breath, visibly collecting himself. All right, we need to wrap up the show. I'm sorry we don't have more for you tonight, but I think we've all had enough excitement for one evening. Laughter rippled through the audience, breaking some of the remaining tension. Before we go, I just want to say one more thing, Andy said, his voice sincere. To anyone watching at home, anyone who's ever been talked down to or disrespected or made to feel less than, you deserve better. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter who's standing in front of you. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small because of their perceived status or importance. The message was clear and powerful. This wasn't just about a talk show confrontation anymore. This was about something bigger, something that resonated with anyone who'd ever been bullied or belittled. Stand up for yourself, Andy continued. Set boundaries. Don't accept treatment that you know is wrong, even if it's coming from someone the world tells you is important. Because at the end of the day, we're all just people, and we all deserve respect. Final applause, final cheers. The audience was completely with him, had been since the moment he'd asked Harry to leave. Andy gave one last wave. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having my back. We'll see you next time, hopefully under better circumstances. The cameras pulled back, showing the full studio, the standing audience, and Andy in the center of it all. Not as a victim, but as someone who'd stood his ground. Someone who'd refused to be treated poorly, regardless of the consequences. What makes this moment so significant isn't just the confrontation itself, it's what it represents. For too long, celebrities with famous names or royal titles have been allowed to behave however they want, treating regular people like servants or nuisances. They've gotten away with rudeness and entitlement because no one wants to rock the boat, no one wants to risk the backlash. But Andy didn't care about any of that. He cared about self-respect. He cared about maintaining standards on his show. He cared about showing his audience that no one, absolutely no one, is above basic human decency. Think about the audacity it takes to go on someone's show and insult them, to sit in their chair, on their stage, in front of their audience, and tell them they're pathetic. Tell them their work doesn't matter. Tell them they're nothing special. The arrogance is breathtaking. But what's even more impressive is Andy's response. He didn't yell. He didn't get down in the mud and trade insults. He simply said, no, this isn't acceptable. This isn't happening on my watch. Leave. That takes courage, real courage. Because Andy knew there would be consequences. He knew Harry's supporters would come after him. He knew there would be think pieces and social media debates and accusations of disrespect toward royalty. But he did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. The exchange between them reveals so much about character. Harry's constant need to assert dominance, to remind everyone of his importance, to put Andy down in order to build himself up. It's textbook insecurity masked as confidence. It's someone who deep down knows they haven't earned their platform, so they overcompensate by demanding respect they haven't deserved. Meanwhile, Andy's calm, measured responses show someone who's secure in who they are. Someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Someone who's built a career through hard work and talent, not through an accident of birth. The moment when Harry said, "Do you know who I am?" might be the most revealing 5 words of the entire confrontation. Because that question, that desperate appeal to status, shows that Harry had nothing else. No logical argument. No valid point. Just his name, his title, his family connection. And when that didn't work, when Andy made it clear that none of that mattered in his studio, Harry completely fell apart. That's what happens when your entire identity is built on something you didn't earn. When the thing you use as a shield gets taken away, there's nothing underneath. No substance, no real character. Just entitlement and anger. Andy's line about respect being a two-way street resonates because it's so fundamentally true. You can't walk around demanding that everyone treat you with reverence while you treat them like dirt. That's not how relationships work. That's not how society functions. And Harry's inability to understand that basic concept is telling. Throughout the entire confrontation, Andy gave Harry opportunities to save face. He could have laughed off the initial insults, could have steered the conversation in a different direction, could have acknowledged that maybe he'd crossed a line. But he didn't. He doubled down. He got meaner. He got more insulting. He pushed and pushed until Andy had no choice but to push back. The security guards appearing was the ultimate reality check. That moment when Harry realized that, yes, this was really happening, he was actually being removed from the show. You could see the shock on his face, the disbelief that someone would dare to treat him this way. Because in his world, that doesn't happen. In his bubble, people apologize to him. People back down. People let him get away with whatever he wants. But not Andy. Not on his show. Not in his house. Harry's final insult, calling Andy bitter and pathetic, was the last gasp of someone who'd lost control of the situation. It was meant to wound, to make Andy question himself, to get some kind of reaction. But Andy's silence and response was more powerful than any comeback could have been. He didn't need to defend himself. His actions had already spoken volumes. The audience's reaction throughout all of this cannot be overstated. They were witnesses to something extraordinary. They watched in real time as their host refused to be bullied. They saw someone stand up for themselves against someone the world tells us we should defer to, and they loved it. They supported it. They celebrated it. Because deep down, everyone understands the frustration of dealing with entitled people. Everyone has encountered someone who thinks they're better than everyone else, who treats service workers or employees or anyone they deem beneath them with contempt. And everyone wishes they could respond the way Andy did. This wasn't about punishing Harry or teaching him a lesson. It was about maintaining standards, about saying this is what's acceptable and this is what's not, about drawing a line and refusing to let anyone cross it, regardless of their pedigree or their perceived importance. The authenticity of the moment is what makes it so compelling. There was no script. There were no do-overs. This was raw, real, human interaction at its most intense. Two people with completely different worldviews colliding in spectacular fashion. Andy's reflection afterward, his comments about respect and dignity and standing up for yourself, elevated the moment beyond just celebrity drama. He took what could have been dismissed as a tabloid-worthy incident and turned it into something meaningful, a teaching moment, a reminder that we all have the right to demand respect, to set boundaries, to say no to mistreatment. What Harry failed to understand is that respect isn't automatic. It's not something you're born with or inherit. It's something you earn through your actions, through how you treat others, through the kind of person you choose to be. And in those few minutes on Andy's show, Harry showed exactly what kind of person he is. Someone who thinks their title makes them special. Someone who believes the rules don't apply to them. Someone who's willing to insult and demean others to make themselves feel bigger. That's not royalty. That's not nobility. That's just ugly behavior dressed up in expensive clothes. The contrast between Harry's entitled attitude and Andy's professional grace couldn't be more stark. One person demanding respect while giving none. Another person commanding respect by simply being decent and fair and willing to stand their ground. This moment will be remembered not because of who was involved, but because of what it represented. A cultural shift where we stop automatically deferring to people just because of their names or their families. Where we hold everyone to the same standard of basic human decency. Where a talk show host can look a prince in the eye and say, "No, not here, not on my watch." Andy's show has always been about authentic moments and real conversations. Well, this was as authentic and real as it gets. No polish, no PR spin, just two people, a massive clash of egos, and one person willing to do what needed to be done. The applause Andy received, the standing ovation, the outpouring of support, that wasn't just for kicking someone off his show, it was for standing up for himself, for showing that you don't have to accept poor treatment from anyone, for demonstrating that self-respect is more important than any celebrity guest or ratings boost. Harry walked onto that stage thinking he was special, thinking his presence was a gift, thinking Andy should feel grateful to have him there. He walked off that stage, escorted by security, having burned a bridge and exposed himself as exactly the kind of person Andy said he was, entitled, disrespectful, unable to handle being treated like everyone else. And Andy, he walked away from that confrontation with his dignity intact, his principles upheld, and his audience firmly in his corner. He proved that doing the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's risky, is always worth it. That's the real story here, not the drama, not the headlines, but the simple truth that respect matters, boundaries matter, and standing up for yourself always matters. No matter who you're standing up to,